Jesus Aguilar graduated from Mills College with his MFA in the spring of 2006. Less than a year later, he's having his first solo show here at the Stephen Wirtz Gallery in San Francisco.
The name of the show is No Entropy, and I titled it No Entropy because of the meaning of the word entropy, which, as I understand it to mean the measure of data that is lost on any given transmission. This is my artist statement, and it's titled Artist Statement. So it's my entire artist statement, my real artist statement that I wrote when I was in grad school, being displayed from beginning to end, one character at a time. I work in video. I think of it as conceptual video. So I'm doing a lot of thinking and pondering and research before I actually go through and make the pieces.
Jesus is exploring the interaction of video and the computer screen in the simplest and most direct approach.
The title of the piece is Dante's Inferno in 8 minutes, 34 seconds. And it is downloaded text from the internet, the entire poem of Dante's Inferno. I love the rawness and the directness of it. When I'm making the work, I really try to not put my hand in it too much. Like with Dante's Inferno, what's happening is that the camera is not able to keep up with the speed of the text. So there's this sort of disintegration that's happening, which metaphorically speaks to information and how ungraspable and how difficult it is to hold on to it in this day and age. What I'm doing here is typing the exact same phrase in my mind, the exact same sort of finger motions. But what I've done is upset the logic of the keyboard by shifting my fingers just one key to the right. And then I will shift my fingers one key to the left. As I was working on this piece, I was really intrigued by the idea of the funneling that happens in language, and sort of the keyboard is yet another funnel. And on the third part of this piece, what I'll do is put my fingers on the home key, and then you're able to sort of decipher what I've been typing all along, which is the phrase, I mean what I say. With all of this work, I found that the immediate kind of gut reaction or the immediate sort of impulse that drove me to make the work was where the work needed to stay. This piece is called ABC 123. I wanted to do a piece where I sort of interacted with the technology in a human way. We use technology for the purpose that it was meant to be, but we don't really have a human relationship with it. So I really wanted to kind of confront it and touch it and feel it, really naively like a child would. Most of my work is inspired by the experimental conceptual video artists of the 70s. What they were experimenting with was video and the nature of video, television, pre-cable, that sort of time. And I sort of think of the computer and the internet as the contemporary of that.
Jesus does most of his work here at the Headland Center for the Arts in Marin. He has a year-long residency. The workshops at the Headland Center provided Jesus with a very unexpected inspiration.
So this is an old letterpress that was donated to the Headlands, and I kind of just came down here one day and I knew about it, and I immediately kind of became enamored by its kind of structure. And what's really interesting to me is that these are the blocks of text. So I'm kind of at this point looking at them and studying them. It's interesting to me because architecturally they kind of become, to me, sort of like buildings and sort of like really literally the building blocks of language in a way. It's not high tech like my new work or my recent work, but it is sort of the bare bones of information and of language. And that's, I think at the core of it, that's what I'm interested in.
0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
Because of the binary system, we are sort of where we are technologically, but it's also very archaic and sort of very clunky. So what I'm doing here is I'm reciting the binary code for good morning, hello, and yes.
1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1.
Maybe because I grew up in a household where English and Spanish were spoken. And I always had to be the intermediary between the two languages. My parents were both immigrants. And to this day, they don't speak English fluently. So as a kid, you're kind of put in the situation where you become the translator. Sort of intuitively, language was really important to me. And I didn't really understand that, and I've never thought that it would come to play in my work, but as I've gotten older, it kind of makes sense.
Jesus is working towards a 2-week show at the Headland Center project space this spring. He is back at the computer and on the internet, where he has Googled his own name.
Last night, a student identified as Jesus Aguilar fell from a 3rd-story building. 22-year-old Fairfield resident Jesus Aguilar Jr. was arrested for robbery and driving under the influence. So all this stuff is important to me, all that. But it's really interesting to me because it kind of reminds me of going through the phone book and you're looking for that one person, and then you see hundreds of people with the same name. So it's kind of about identity. As sort of a way to illustrate this a little bit easier is I'm placing my name in the same spot. Because what Google does is that it highlights your name. It sort of boldens the search queue. Also, it's about fragments of information and the breakdown of information. But what I want to do is do a video that kind of looks exactly like that. Working in videos, the challenge is to keep the viewer intrigued enough to want to sit with the piece, or to sort of give enough to the viewer from just a 5-second snippet. It's very difficult. I have an Apple computer, and I'm in Northern California, and I lived through the Silicon Valley days, so I don't think of my work as being about myself or about my history or about anything like that. I think of it more of being of this time, and I'm part of this time.